Okay, there is a practice in many shuls that they have as part of the youth department what they call a junior congregation. What happens at the junior congregation? So it varies from shul to shul, but in certain shuls, in many shuls, apparently what happens is a bunch of 4th to 6th graders get together, no one over the age of bar mitzvah, and they say everything. Kaddish, Kedusha, Baruch Hu, Kriyas HaTorah, the whole business. So the question is this permissible to do? The advantages, the arguments that are made for the advantages of a junior congregation is that it gives the opportunity to teach young men how to lane, how to lead davening, how to say the tefillos with proper nusach, and additionally, boys feel a sense of bailus over their tefillah, over the entire tefillah experience, and therefore they tend to take it more seriously because it's their tefillah. It's geared toward young people who have a shorter attention span and maybe wouldn't be able to handle a 2.5-hour davening in shul with their fathers. So those are the advantages. Some of the disadvantages, there are those that argue that the best chinuch is provided by modeling how to daven, so the child sitting next to the father. Also, by the way, the worst chinuch is provided sometimes by modeling how not to daven, but the best chinuch is provided by modeling how to daven, so a boy sitting next to his father will learn in that way, in that very powerful way, and it also further fragments the community. You know, we live in an age where people feel that every 10 years requires their own tefillah, their own minyan, that people can't daven with anyone 10 years older than them or 10 years younger than them, but it would be nice if, we can come together as a community once in a while and daven. But there are certain halachic issues that come up, and that is particularly two things. First of all, saying Dvarim Shebekdusha without the presence of 10 men over the age of bar mitzvah. Are you allowed to do that? And second of all, brachos levatala all over the place. Chazar Hashatz, the brachos for the aliyos and Kriyas HaTorah, these are all issues of bracha levatala. So a few points of background information, then we'll get to what the poskim say. Point number one of background information is that the Gemara in Brachos Tav Chaf Aleph and Beis tells us that minayin she'ein hayachid omer kedusha, that a davar shebekdusha requires a minyan, and we derive it she'emer v'nikdashi b'soch b'nei Yisrael kol davar shebekdusha lo yeh pachos me'asara. For a davar shebekdusha, you require at least a minyan. The second point is that there is a mitzvah of chinuch, and the Mishnah Berurah in Siman Reish Tezvav Sivkat Yadalit says that that a child can say brachos even shalom bizmanam, even out of context, in order to learn those brachos. Some posts can compare that to saying a bracha on a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, just like you'd say a bracha on a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. It's a questionable comparison. There is a chakira about the mitzvah of chinuch in general that Rav Moshe Tainas is a machlokas between the Magen Avram and the Mishnah Berurah, and that is whether the mitzvah of chinuch is to fulfill the mitzvos right now, ke'enu mitzvah v'yoseh, or just to be margil in the behavior that will when they get older they will become chayiv in. Rav Moshe Tainas that it's that machlokas is a machlokas whether you're allowed to have co-ed classes at a very young age. Not going to get into the details of that right now. A third issue to consider is the issue of bracha levatala. There is a machlokas rishonim what exactly the nature of the issur of bracha levatala is. Is it an issur daraisa or is it an issur midrabanan? Tosfos Rosh Hashanah Daf Lamed Gimel, the Rosh in the first part of Masechus Kiddushin, according to Rabbeinu Tam, the Sefer HaChinuch, all say that it's only an Isser Midrabanan. The way the Magen Avram and the Minchas Chinuch understand Shitas HaRambam is that it's an Isser Mid'oraisa. So now let's get to what the poskim actually say. Rav Moshe Negros Moshe Or Chaim Chelik Beis Simin Tzadi Ches provides the following analysis. The Gemara in Rosh Hashanah Daf Lamed Gimel says that Ein Ma'akvin HaTinokos Militkoa B'Shabbos, that we don't stop children from blowing shofar on Shabbos. So says Rav Moshe, it would seem from that Gemara, if children decided on their own to get together and form such a group and do whatever, say whatever the people say at a regular minyan, then we wouldn't have to stop them, even though we would not be able to participate nor encourage such a tefillah, since Dvarim Shebekdusha being said b'pachos me'asara is a problem, and they're all brachos levatala, and in the Chazar Hashatz and in the Kriyas HaTorah. However, Rav Moshe points out, Tosos, the Rosh, and the Ran all hold that the Gemara is speaking specifically about Rosh Hashanah Shechalios B'Shabbos, where be'etzem they're doing a Maisa Mitzvah by blowing the shofar. But over here, where there's no Maisa Mitzvah whatsoever, it could be that there is no, that even children doing it on their own would be problematic. And even the Rambam, who understands that it's talking about a regular Shabbos that's not Rosh Hashanah, maybe only permits it because blowing shofar is only a Shavuos. Even though the Rambam holds we would stop a kid who's Higia L'chinuch, those who assume the Gemara allows for Higia L'chinuch probably only allow for an Isser D'Rabbanan, or Shavuos D'Rabbanan. Then Rav Moshe goes on to say, well, wait a second, is the recitation of Dvarim Shebekdusha or Bracha Levatala considered an Isser D'Oraisa? So Rav Moshe has an interesting idea. He says, to say Dvarim Shebekdusha is only a requirement Midrabanan. But the Isser of saying Dvarim Shebekdusha without a minyan is an Isser D'Oraisa. And as we pointed out before, many Rishonim hold Bracha Levatala is also an Isser D'Oraisa. So based on all the above, says Rav Moshe, it would seem that we would have to stop a self-formed group of kids that decides to do this. And it's obvious, he says, that we are not allowed to promote such a group or form such a group or run such a group because we are promoting the violation of Isurim. Rav Vadia Yosef has a Tshuva Miksav Yad that Rabbi Isaac Rice pointed out to me is printed in Yalkut Yosef in Hilchos Tefillah on page Kuf Peites, where he also has major problems with allowing for such a Tefillah group. And but he quotes an entirely different set of Marmakomos than Rav Moshe quoted. Rav Vadia quotes a Gemara Megillah Daf Chav Gimel and Beis, which we quoted from the Gemara in Brachos before, that you need a minyan for a davar shebekdusha, and we paskin not to be mitzdarif a katan even b'shas adchak, says Rav Vadia, and the obligation to say dvarim shebekdusha in general only exists when there's a tzibur present. It's a chovas hatzibur, it's not a chovas hayachid. So if you don't have a tzibur, if you don't have a minyan, the whole chiv to say dvarim shebekdusha doesn't exist. The Ramban in the Malchamos in the first parak of Megillah says that we would only say dvarim shebekdusha if 10 adults, or the majority of 10 adults are mechuyavim bedavar. So it follows that when the group is entirely comprised of ketanim, there is no mitzvah chinuch even, because there is the entire takanas chazal of saying all of these dvarim shebekdusha is only in the presence of a minyan. So what? You're being mechanech a child that when he gets older, when there are 9 children around, he should say dvarim shebekdusha? That's not appropriate at all, says Rav Vadia. If Rav Vadia further quotes Tosas and Pesachim Daf Pei Chesam and Aleph, where Tosas asks how we could be machil korban Pesach for a katan if he's shalol lemnuyav. He's not one of those registered on the korban Pesach. Generally, the Gemara Yevamah says lima that you're not allowed to be. It's also lisvos isur biyadayim. You're not allowed to feed isur to a katan. And Tosas says mitam chinuch it's mutter. So Vadi explains that by korban Pesach there's chinuch, because when he gets older he's going to be chayiv in the korban Pesach and the achilas of korban Pesach. But now, but when it comes to these dvarim shebekdusha, it's not even chinuch, for the same reason we said before. When he gets older, if he's surrounded by 9, 11-year-old boys, he would not be obligated to say dvarim shebekdusha. The whole chiyuv would not exist. Further, Avadi quotes the Rambam, the first paragraph of Hilchos Brachos, says hatinokos mulamdin mosama brachos kitikunam v'afal pi shem askirim shem shemaim levatala reza mutter. That typically when training children to say brachos, you can train them to say the Shem Hashem, even though it seems to be Shem Shamayim Levatala. But Ravadia points out that's only when that's the only way to teach them how to say the bracha properly. You certainly don't want people growing up not knowing how to say Shem Hashem in a bracha, because Kol bracha shein b'Shem u'malchus ain't a bracha, the Gemara Masechus Brachos tells us. So that would lead them when they grow up to be mevatel the mitzvah of tefillah and birchas hamazon and all other brachos. But that wouldn't apply to chazaras hashatz, kaddish, kedusha without a minyan. That's just directly against Chazal. And then Rav Vadia quotes a raya that it cannot be done from a Rambam in the 5th parak of Hilchos Brachos, who says Ketanim ein mizamnin liatzmam. And the Kes Mishnah explains that the kids have no chiyuv in any mitzvah, and the mitzvah's chinuch is only on the father. So a group of Ketanim has no obligation whatsoever in zimun. So Rav Vadia quotes that he's not the only one that has a problem with these groups. He does not quote Rav Moshe, but he quotes the Rishon LeZion, the Mishpatei Uziel, in Orach Chaim Tinyanin, the Miluim, page Reish Tes, who says, Lo nachon lasos kein. So Rav Vadia says, look, Mishpatei Uziel didn't quote all of my Marmakomos, but we came to the same conclusion, that it's not proper to do such a thing. And he says there's the Tshuva Simrei Tzvi and Simon Klov Ches, who also answers, and what should be done. So look what Yosef says. If you have a group of children, some over bar mitzvah, some under bar mitzvah, so you can make a minyan with those that are over bar mitzvah, and have the ones that are under bar mitzvah come and join in the tefillah and be able to answer answer Kedusha and be able to answer all of the Ameins. But you cannot make a group of those who are only or exclusively under Bar Mitzvah. Is there anyone that permits it? Says Rav Vadia, yes. The Shoel in the Mishpatei Uziel published a sefer called Keser Ephraim, and in Siman Chav Beis of Keser Ephraim, he is Mekil, but he himself gathers what the reaction he got from other poskim, and they were all machmir against him. And he says, Yesh la shevel dvarav kasher einei hama'ayin techzenem esharim. Anyone who's looking at it straight will see that you have what to respond to this. I have not come across anything in writing that is supportive of the idea, but there is a lot of people that tell me that this is a very popular thing to do. Rav Shechter pointed out that there's a Madana Yom Tov in Maseches Brachos that says pretty explicitly that a katan is not allowed to say Kaddish unless there is a minyan of 10 adults that are present. Outside of a minyan of 10 adults, it's a chiddush that he can say Kaddish when there is a minyan of 10 adults, but outside of a minyan of 10 adults, he's not allowed to say Kaddish. So the pashtus is that it should not be done with all of the Dvarim Shebekdusha, but it requires further iyun, I guess. Okay, have a great day, everybody.